Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live. We're going to be finishing off some of my preliminary layouts here that we stamped last week. And I just received the rubber for my new designs just yesterday, so I haven't tested any of these out yet, but we'll do it right here in the live stream tonight. And let's see, we'll go with the sea life imagery, and we'll see how that goes. I have an 8.5 by 5.5 half page piece of glossy cardstock that we've pre-stamped with Nature Set number 41 imagery on here. And I've transitioned the tones on here to give a kind of a sense of depth and kind of atmosphere, fog air, foggy, a foggy time of day, time of year, whatever, on this. And we will follow up on this with some additional tones. And we'll do it just largely like a grayscale, bluish tone, I think. Just how blue will go, we'll figure that out as we go along. Hello, Candy, how are you? Can't wait to see what you do with the new imagery, Candy. All right, let's see here. Let's see. I'm gonna just take some re-inker fluid. I was gonna stamp my imagery on here first, but then I thought, it's gonna be done in black, and then I'm gonna have to wait for those to dry. So sometimes it's better just to get the tones down in terms of glossy cardstock, at least, and then stamp right over the top of it. If you don't want to wait around for it to dry. So, sponging, whatever applicator you have would be good for this process right here. This is a re-inker fluid, and it's a Ranger inker, re-inker, so pretty thick ink. The Adirondacks, if you have those still, or Distress inks. The tumbled glass would be an excellent one to use as far as like distress inks. A lot of people have distress inks, so I just mentioned those a lot of times. But Memento, whatever. Was that Pooler? Catherine Pooler. Yeah, Catherine Pooler inks, Stampin' Up! Inks, whatever you have. But as you can see, this is a really light tone. And if you just load up a applicator with that, you can get a really good application with just doing that. Okay, I used to just use my ink pads, and I would dab into my ink pads and go, but this just makes life so much easier. And you can get this kind of preliminary base coat down very quickly. Hello, Linda. Your stamps are on the way. It probably doesn't read in terms of any tracking right now because I dropped it off at my local post office, and I think they scan them when it gets over to the main postal hub, which is just like a couple miles away from my local hub. All right, so laying this down, oscillating a little bit. If anyone doesn't kind of, whatever, understand lighting or something like that, you don't have to understand much. You can just kind of fake it like I do. I don't know, maybe I understand it a little bit these days, but what I've done here is I've kind of toned in the perimeter to kind of frame things off a little bit. It's not dark yet because this is like a super light tone, but there's like a streak of color across there. I've made it lighter right here by not applying ink. And then right through here, there's like these little streaks of tone. So it's going dark, light, darker, lighter, and dark. So dark, light, dark. All right. It just creates variety, instead of having everything just solid. Yeah, Linda, hope those get up to you in a timely manner. I never know with that simple export method how fast something is going to arrive. Sometimes when I ship simple export to those international destinations, I do I do some tracking on it, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's been hasn't even left the kind of the hub yet, which is somewhere up in LA. I think it's around LAX somewhere. But I don't know. I guess that what they're doing, that simple export method is this, as far as I know, it's a slightly newer kind of method of transport. Like I had to petition to get to be allowed to utilize that. I don't know why, but it's this website that I use for my shipping. But I don't know. They just don't make it available to anyone. I have no idea why. You have to write to them and say, hey, I want to be able to ship this method. But I think what they do is they consolidate or something like that, and they just find the most efficient but also cheapest way to ship something. And there's not things like brokerage fees involved, especially when it comes to which can be really significant when it comes to Canada, especially with like UPS. I found it's like, oh my gosh, brokerage fees. But we'll see these days, with all these crazy tariff types of situations going on. All right, so we're going with our next tone, which is Salvia Blue. Salvia Blue is it's a little bit of a thicker ink, not because it's the color of it, but it's just the Salvia Blue is a Marvy ink color, and Marvy inks are thinner than Ranger inks, or just about any other ink out there on the market. So it penetrates the surface really quickly, and it can get through those thicker layers of ink that have been pre-applied, in terms of the base layer color. Now that being said, a lot of people don't have Marvy colors, so what you do is you just ink up and let it set up for a little bit, maybe a minute or two longer, so that you're not trying to apply damp ink into a really wet surface, because your ink is going to transfer onto the page. I'm talking about glossy cardstock too, not like a semi-gloss or something like that, or definitely a matte that's going to be a lot more absorbent. Okay, so that was the Salvia Blue. Just applied to the same thing. I'm picking up some of this, and some of my black, I don't know if you can see it there, but it is kind of streaking, even though it is pretty dry. Hello, Tracy. Hope everyone had a nice week. These weeks kind of fly by, don't they? What are we in? June, almost the end of June. Crazy, huh? I was thinking, oh my God, I got to do my second quarter sales tax submission and all that fun stuff. It's like, oh my God, it's like the time's flying by. Which means we're having fun, I guess, right? We don't want time to be crawling or something like that. All right, I just bisected that area up there a little bit with a little streak across there. It was just a little bit too much, light. So that's what I do. Like down here, see, this whole area right here can be just one big ball of light. But I don't think it's quite as interesting. So what you do is you just bisect these areas like that. So it's like too big. Put a streak right across there so it goes dark, light now. So there's a little bit more variation. It doesn't have to be like a super dark streak or anything like that. But see, I can just keep bisecting these areas like this. And you don't get it in like one stroke like that. You could, I guess, if you're like a calligrapher or something like that, and you're used to doing these brush strokes and getting, the exact type of thing you want, or like watercolor painters are really good at that, but I'm not. So I try to get these transitioning, graceful streaks like that with multiple passes. You got to start decorating for Christmas holidays, which is, I joke about it, but it's really not too much of a joke. It's almost like we end up putting up a lot of decorations during the holidays. We do both Halloween and Christmas, so it's like by the time we get everything up for one holiday, it's like the next holiday, and by the time we get everything up for Christmas, it's like you feel like you got to take it down. So it's like we should really put this up like, I don't know, like a month earlier on both for both of the holidays. Because it feels like we start putting stuff out for like 3 weeks, and it feels like it's up for like a week or something like that, or just a few days sometimes. All right, Caribbean blue. Look at that beautiful blue right there. See how much richer it is like that? I don't know if I want that, but like this one right here, I might want it like a deeper blue, but it does have a more kind of welcoming blue when you have a little bit of that warmth in there like that. Now, if it's too much, you don't want your whales in the, the Gulf of Mexico or something like that, with like really warm tropical waters or something like that. This can just be a base layer, and it can give you a little bit of richness, but you can bury it under like another layer of like a navy blue or something like that. So you get the richness, but you don't necessarily have all of the warmth. Now, if I was doing it on the semi-gloss cardstock too, you can add your, which I can kind of do on here too. You can add, but you can color over the top of this with your alcohol inks as well, or colored pencils. Again, if it was like a semi-gloss, something that's going to have a little bit of tooth to it. If anyone just joined in and is checking this out, sometimes I'm asked about this, but they said, what are you coloring with? And it's just like a wadded up paper towel, the most high-tech form of coloring, stamping technology ever invented. All right, so we have that. And speaking of those other colors, let's move into kind of a darker tone, or darker tones. Let's try, like I said, like a navy blue, something like that. This pad is completely, concave here, because it's been, the fabric is really, the foam's broken down. This is probably a 30 some odd year old pad. Might be 35 years old. But for like color applications, if you're not using this to stamp your imagery out, which it can't be because it's all, it doesn't have an even surface, you can still use it for your color applications, like this. Oops, maybe I shouldn't have gone in so far because I'm going to stamp those whales in here. Actually, it's just the dorsal fins. So I guess you can do whatever. Because, those fins are like largely like dark silhouettes. Hello, Lisa. Oh, I didn't even see that there, Lisa. But yeah, paper towel. So what type of applicator specifically? I think it's Bounty. It's whatever the Costco's around here carry. Okay, now I should say this because sometimes it does come up, but sometimes people say, "Hey, I can't get that, you know, that type of application. It's all smooth." But of course, your paper towel is like this. It's patterns. So when I'm inking up and inking like this, I'm getting that pattern everywhere like that, right? Okay. But if you ink up and you just, it's a paper towel, so if you just go like this, I mean, it's like smashed down. So now instead of this pattern type of thing, you get that right there. So it's it's an ink applicator of varying textures, textural possibilities. It's a range of possibility. I don't know. Maybe utilize the texture if you're dabbing in some area and you want a little bit of texture to it. I've never done that before. Like, I'm thinking of something like sand or something like that comes up. Maybe you use some of it to get like a little bit of a coarser type of texture. And then, you can use the same one, just kind of keep going on where it starts to flatten out, and then you can get more of like a smoother application or something like that. Yeah. See that I started getting this little kind of thing here. Sometimes if you have longer fingernails too, if you start seeing this kind of like half moon type of shape in there, it's because you're going like this, and then those nails are kind of going through there like that. Okay, so just instead of holding it like this, hold it like this a little bit more. See my nails going out like that instead of like this. And as you can see, I need to kind of remind myself of that too, because I was just getting that shape in there. But if you get that type of shape like that, because you've laid all these tones down there like that, that will just kind of, you can just blend it right in. Okay, that's where the benefits of the a good thick base layer coat comes in on glossy cardstock, that is. Okay, if you get a good base layer coat and the page is a little bit moist, you don't want it sopping wet, which it does get sometimes if you're going on with really thick inks, and by the time you get to that third or fourth layer of ink, it can be really built up on here, which is good for a couple things, in that it's easy to blend it out, but it's hard to apply it though if it's like super wet. So just let it kind of set a little bit. Now in here it's kind of drying because it's getting a little bit warmer here in our area. So it is drying on me a little bit. And if you're applying your darker colors and it's kind of going on kind of, clunky or something like that, you can't really spread it out. Which you can on, this is just copy paper here, but I'm saying if it's doing that on your card where it was really blending really easily with the second color, third color, something like that, then what you do is you go back to your re-inker fluid or whatever you used on your base layer coat and reapply it right over the top of this, and that'll get it kind of moistened up again. And then just go back to your darker colors and start applying it. Or you can just go with your re-inker fluid on here. Like here, I'll show you. With a light color, don't do it with like a super dark tone. And just apply it like on that. So you have your darker color on here, but you have your lighter color on here too. And see, this like really kind of just blends really super nicely. It applies really nicely because it's, it just has a really thick amount of moisture and color, of course, right in your applicator. So you can use a sponge or whatever, what do you, something more absorbent is really good. You can try your blending tools if that's what you're comfortable using too, but I would try to get them kind of really like sopping wet, with the first light base layer colors, okay? Anyway, so you can see that where that oscillation is happening in here, and it gives it, you know, pretty nice texture. Maybe I should use some like water pattern texture on here too, but oscillation of light and dark. You know, darker, a little bit lighter, darker, light, dark. Okay, it's not like super dark. I'm just saying it's darker than white. Light, dark, light, dark, light. So we've really broken that area up quite a bit. And let's go all the way to black here. Hello, Chris. Oh, I'm talking about like the Sea of Cortez, I guess, Chris. Yeah, not the Gulf of Mexico. Sea of Cortez. I think it's like a Point Concepcion or something like that in these one areas. I don't know. That's where I want to go kayaking. All right, this is black right here. It doesn't read as black, but it's just kind of a darker, you know, kind of bluish gray. It gives it a little bit more, yeah, definitely more contrast. Okay, now I can't get darker just going like this because I'm kind of wiping, smearing on color, so it's not going on super thick, you know, when I'm doing that. So what you do is, instead of going like this, if you want it to get darker in a certain area, then what you do is you start tapping it like this to build up little, you know, kind of micro beads. Now as I do this, I'm kind of getting a rough edge like in here. It's a little splotchy, so that's just sitting there, so I just kind of wipe it like that. Okay, so that's kind of the technique. You kind of just change up your applications a little bit, or mix it up a little bit. But the big thing is to get this, you know, reasonably smooth application of color here. The trick of it is getting the, you know, the moisture content on the surface, kind of a workable one that's really comfortable for applications. A lot of times what it's going to be for you guys though, if you're not working with the thinner, or a combination of like Marvy inks and the thicker ones, it's usually going to be just like really thick on there. So what you'll be doing is you'll just be allowing it to dry and set up a little bit. Maybe do two of them at the same time, you know, two cards at the same time, or with the same color schemes or something. And just allow it to set up a little bit, and where it's not quite so moist. And then you'll be able to get these applications of, you know, darker tones down typically, you know, because in this kind of technique you work from light to dark. Now, like I said, you can go back and add in some lighter tones or something like that. Like if I decide, you know, I want some more of that Caribbean blue right in here. Let's, sometimes I'm giving examples, but here, let's go ahead and do that. Let's say I wanted it more varied in here. It's like, it looks a little kind of anemic here to me. And maybe, you know, this looks all, you know, fairly similar right here. But let's say we wanted a brighter here. Okay, now I have to switch here because I already have black in this, but let's go to this right here. Here's that Caribbean blue. By the way, if there's certain colors that you don't have in pad form, ink form, I have a pad for Caribbean blue, but I recommend to people, if you have a bunch of pads already, like, you know, a lot of us do, and there's certain colors that you don't have that you might want. If you're not going to be stamping out imagery in those colors that you're getting, then just get the re-inker for it. You don't need the pad, right? Unless you want to, you know, for convenience sake or something like that. You want to just grab the pad and put it down and use it. But if you're just going to be putting on a sponge or something like that, or an applicator, the re-inker fluid is going to give you a lot more ink than a pad has. Like this bottle of ink is going to have probably, I don't know, 5 times, 10 times more ink than a pad is going to have. And then you can get more colors, you know. So see that right there? Can you see that right there? Okay, I can see it live here. I don't know if you can see it here. I'm looking up at my screen. I don't know if there's a big difference. I'll just go on one side like this. But that's a little bit brighter here than over here. I don't know if my camera's really picking it up, but it's a lot kind of richer. So I'm adding this kind of saturation and glow here with this slightly warmer, or a lot warmer blue. And I'm doing that because like I wanted some variation from, you know, one area to the next. It looks a little blotchy up there. Oops. Don't do it that way. Drag like this. I like to go really dark in my corners like this to really kind of frame it off, like so. All right, I didn't know I'd be spending so much time just on working on the coloring here, but I really wanted to get some saturations down on here. All right, so this is going to be like a, I don't know, like a, I don't know what time of year. It now looks like winter or something like that. Which I didn't really intend to. I just kind of wanted to look like a, I don't know, like a, I don't know, past twilight type of situation, maybe. You know, moving into night. It's more staging, though, than reality. Okay, so using some grayscale in there. Just a real pale gray, pale bluish gray. I wanted to get some colors on my trees here, just so they're not just straight white in those areas. We'll add acrylic paint pens to this too. All right, so let's see. I think this is ready for our imagery. All right. I should really stamp this out a few times. The first few times with your stamps, I don't feel they give the best impressions, so maybe stamp it out a couple times. I don't know, it seems to, the ink like permeates the rubber a little bit more, you know, by the third or fourth impression or something like that. Or sometimes what you can do too is you can kind of just go and scrub off a little bit the rubber, or you can do it with water too. This is getting a little linty for me, so maybe won't do that, but let's do this. All right, this is this image right here. That's not too bad. First impression. I think I have a little bit of a mold release on here. Let me just do this right here. Sometimes in the rubber pressing process, I don't know what I've been told. I don't press my own rubber, but they spray this release into the mold, you know. I don't think that they do it after every impression, but I think I see a little bit of it right here. Okay, there we go. Okay. See, let's go right here, and then let's try to use, try to use the smaller one right up top here. Sorry about that. Has anyone ever been whale watching? I've never been out on a boat doing that, but seen them from shore. Sometimes they see them like on those Alaskan cruises or something like that too, I think. Wish you had the dexterity to use a paper towel. Use your whole body, Candy. That's what my our drawing and painting and illustrations instructors always used to say. I probably don't, but you know, in order to get that really super fluid gestural kind of motion. I'm holding this down for a long time just because there's like, I don't know, 15 layers of ink underneath this, and I wasn't quite sure how wet it was still, so I don't know if I'm getting, you know, a very fast transfer of this ink onto my scene here. A little bit missing right in there. It's like super wet in here with that Caribbean blue. I'll go and touch that up a little bit. But anyways, look at that right there. It's like, you know, those whales are kind of their own, they're their own drama, you know. I'm always trying to increase kind of the, whatever, emotional range of a piece. Okay, what I'm looking at, I'm checking out this is a cling foam version of this, of course. But I was looking at this area right in here, you know, and if it was trimmed close enough. If you find that, you know, some areas are printing around there, just trim off, do a little bit of extra trimming like that, you know. My rubber guy that makes my plates for me, he doesn't want to trim too close because, you know, he definitely doesn't want to be, you know, go into the, you know, I mean, it would ruin the set, you know, he would never send it to me if he cut into the rubber, but sometimes if you can cut like a little bit of like 1/8 of an inch or something like that, you know, I don't think I needed to here, but I'm just giving an example, but these little crumb, you know, bits like that can help with that if that is occurring, okay? So I tend to look at these things, and sometimes, you know, before I send out sets, I'll just do this little extra snip right there. Just if I think that that area might ink up and stamp out, okay? So like that should do it right there, just that little tiny bit right there. And I cut into this right here because I have to think about the space in between those two fins right there. All right, so pod number 2 right here. If this was a really foggy day, what you can do is you can stamp this one out in black and then stamp this one out in this case, like I don't know, you can stamp it. I don't know if I would stamp it out on a blue or a gray, not with this darker blue right here, but like if they're really far in the distance, I would probably ink it up with black, maybe blot it off one first, and then go with the second impression so that it's like lighter, just as these trees are lighter than these foreground trees right here. This one looks like it's ready to go here. Let me do one more. Yeah, this little one's ready to go. These areas right here where you have a lot of solid area, like right in here, sometimes what which I would never do, but like Posh Impressions that had those gigantic images that were all solid, like Christmas ornaments or something like that, or hearts, stuff like that. They would actually use some sort of like, I thought it was like some sort of like really fine grained sandpaper, before they started, inking up, just to get the surface condition to accept the most amount of ink or something like that. I don't know if that was them recommending it or people were recommending it. I mean, but you think it's sandpaper, you think, oh my God, that's like cringy thinking about something like that. But, I don't know what it was. I don't know. What's a super fine grit? Like 1,000 or something like that? Um, you know, uh, that's what they used to say, so. Okay, so there those are like that. Let me finish this off later, but there's a lot of solid area on here with the black right there. So that's going to take a little bit of time to dry. And then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add in, our little special effects in here, some white pigment ink and some coloring on those trees right there. But I want to let this dry a little bit. Let's go on with this one. This one's one of the Deanna Tubbs-Cedillo test. I need to ask her what she's calling these right here. It was like it was like a test paper. I don't think it's in production, so I don't know if it's available or if it's available in the smaller size or something like that. But I hope she at some point in time she releases some of these papers in this size right here. So it's almost a half page, I think, but I think it has a little bit of border on each side, coming out of a printer. So I think it was like 8x5 or something like that. But it's really fantastic to work on. All right. Let's see. That one looks pretty good right there. I don't think I need to do anything to the rubber. What I used to do too with brand new stamps is I would go like this. I would ink it up, and then I would also kind of I would do this with it. I just on a piece of copy paper like that to get a little bit of friction on that surface right there to condition it a little bit. I don't know if I really do that these days, but if you need to. All right, let's see. This was going to go in here. These orcas are like underwater, so I'm trying to think of what angle should I put them in here. It could be like this. That would kind of emphasize the, them being underwater like that. With that one kind of a little bit more vertical. Let's do that, I think. Okay, I'm stamping this out in the dye-based ink just now. What occurred to me is this paper right here is this matte one with the pre-printed ink on here. I think it's just I don't know what Deanna has, if it's an inkjet printer or if it's one of those reservoir styles of printers, that have more ink in them. But when I'm doing that, sometimes I'll go with a thicker ink, like a hybrid or maybe like a brilliance pigment, or like a VersaFine Clear would be good on there too. We'll see how this goes. If it stamps out lighter, then the whales just represent, objects that are a little bit farther away, and there's less clarity to the water. Oh, they stamped out, nice and dark. Okay, so, I don't know. At least the Marvy dye-based ink worked really good on there, so good to know. No, I guess this one right. No, the green on there was Marvy pen work. But yeah, I don't know. I can't remember what I used on here last week. That's too long ago to remember. Hello, Bonnie. Thanks, Bonnie. Yeah. It's this one was the glossy here, Candy. One thing I was mentioning though earlier was I've kind of gotten really used to using the semi-gloss cardstock because I really like using colored pencils for the detailed areas. Like I'd probably use some different colored pencils up here. I don't know, maybe have some variations of light green or something like that, which you can do with the alcohol pens, but I really like the textures of the colored pencils. So I've been using a little bit more of that lately. Glossy, though, does have some kind of really, I don't know, striking types of characteristics to it. As I always say, that's why they use glossy cardstock for anything, the printing industry, advertising industry, to get everyone's attention. Movie posters, book jackets, business cards, flyers. They're all glossy. Unless they're just trying to stand out from an all glossy world, with like a satin, which I love. I love kind of seeing like a matte or a satin book cover or something like that too. It seems more textural, but just in terms of the visual aspect of it, it's usually glossy. Okay, so let's bring in a little bit of additional tones into these rocks down here. Speaking of colored pencils, let's just use some of that. I'm not going to change colors too much. I'll just go with the same kind of color scheme. But what I want to do is I want to just add, this looks like that rock behind this growth here. It's supposed to be like kelp. I just want some variation in these rocks. I never thought I'd be, such a big fan of colored pencils. I always love the look, though. Whenever I see anyone using colored pencils in the past on scenes, it seemed like everyone in Germany was doing colored pencil work in the 90s on scenes. But yeah, I don't know. I was into kind of those extremes of possibilities in terms of intensity and contrast and value, and you just get that when you're using thick saturations of inks. Yeah, maximum brightness. I guess I changed with age. Or maybe it's just that I used it for so many years. Just almost like exclusively, I was telling someone recently. All right, so we're retaining some of the light areas on some of these rocks right in here, but just kind of increasing the shadow tone, depth. And you can color really on this printed background paper really easily because Deanna printed it on matte. I think she might sell these. I'm not sure. Because on Facebook, I used one of her other test prints. That's looking better with those rocks. They look more There's more volumes to them. And someone asked her, I think, if they can get, so I don't know what it was. It was maybe the larger printouts. I think Deanna replied, like, I am her, instant message her. So I was taking it to, maybe that means maybe she would, sell some, print some out, just like a pack of them or something like that. So if anyone's interested, you can inquire, or you can it's I forgot what Deanna's web channel is here on YouTube. You might be able to send her an email from her channel too. Like I said, I don't know if these are available, or not. But if they are, it's pretty cool. It's like you have to kind of know the inside or info to get them. It's like a background paper speakeasy. All right, but anyways, here those go like that. A little bit more. See, you retain a little bit of those lighter areas on your rocks, and they'll look more. It'll give them some variation in volume, and look a little bit more three-dimensional that way. Okay, now I was saying to Deanna, I thought because she commented on this layout here before I had the whales in here, but I think she was just saying she's looking forward to the new stamps. But I was telling her, hey, this background paper of hers that looked kind of more like, it looked like stars in space. I said, hey, your paper is gonna work really good for your underwater space types of sky imagery, night sky imagery. I said it's gonna work great for underwater pieces, I thought. The gum eraser work well, okay. Oh, for your rubber, you mean, Bonnie? For testing where to put an image or how it'll work, I stamp with memories ink on S. That's a great technique there, Tracy. I knew someone that, back when sometimes people would stamp out some of their imagery on with StazOn on acetate or something like that, so they would compose with all those transparencies like that, like whole images, scenes. Now I would imagine, I don't know what they did, because a lot of times you want to, I don't know, maybe I don't think they had multiple impressions of each, like, tree trunk if they were going to do a whole forest or something like that. Maybe they just kind of moved around the tree or something like that on a foundation. But some of the most complex compositions, or people that would do the most complex compositions, did that. It was Pam Klein, and she's in the gallery section of the website. She had a store called Inclined to Stamp, and that's the way she taught her students how to do scenic stamping. And she was amazing. She did really great stuff. But then even one of her students, was a really amazing scenic stamper. And she's, was it Jolene Meyer? I think, Jolene Meyer? I think Jolene Meyer, Jolene something. She ended up being really fantastic herself. And there's a bunch of pieces of hers on the website gallery, and she stopped stamping because I think she was, I don't know what happened. She was raising Dobermans or something like that. Or it was some breed of dog. I thought it was Dobermans. But she just got, she got too busy with that. So, okay, now see this little thing right here? I thought that looks like underwater, like light beams or something like that. So I'm going to go with that. So I'm lining this up right here. Normally I have, just for ease sake, I have like my emanating light coming from something within the boundaries of the card, just so I can put that right there and, do a light beam. But this one, it already has these in here, okay? So I'm going to put this right here, and we'll see how this works right here. And then I'll come, okay, so this is going to be at the base of that and like that, just for ease. And this is, see this beam right here, I'll go like this right here. So this right here will be my vanishing point for some additional light rays in this scene. I probably, if it was a little bit darker down here, it would be cool too, because you'll be able to see these beams a little bit more. But here, let me see. I need 2 pieces of this, don't I? Okay, let's see. Let's position this again. Oh, wait. I need this one. Where did my vanishing point go? Okay, here we go. Now, if you're off by a little bit when you're doing this vanishing point stuff, it's not going to matter too much. You don't want to be off too much, though. You don't want to be off like a ½ inch from one vanishing point to the next, usually, as it can look a little bit odd. Okay, let's see here. I wanted to do this too. Okay, so we have this beam in here, and I'm going to have, I thought it'd be cool to have like a beam going over the top of one of these whales, or over the top of one, and maybe another beam's going in behind the whales here. So this is how you can do something like that. Okay, so there's my vanishing point right there, and then you make your beam as narrow or as wide as you want it to be. I like to kind of vary it in my scenes where there's different sizes of light rays. We call them crepuscular rays. You got 250 sheets of chrome coat. We need colored pencils that can work on chrome coat, don't we, Candy? You gotta put down. I did find that I can get a little bit of colored pencil. Some of my Prismacolor pencils do work on glossy cardstock. But I can't put, like, say, more than one layer of it. And it's not all of my colors either. Just some of the colored pencil colors are softer than others. Okay, so this is white pigment ink here. Okay. Smash it down a little bit into your cotton ball so that it's not all frizzy. Okay, let's see here. I have to check out my alignment, make sure that my paper is aligned here. It looks like it's like a fussy little kind of exercise here, but it's really not. It's just, you're generally just putting that right there, and like I said, you can kind of pivot this, open or close, one way or another. But I don't think you really need to, I'm not going to tape this down because this, like beam is not going to take very long. So you don't need to use like painter's tape or anything like that. Unless it's just going, unless it's just going nuts on you or something. Then maybe use it, or I don't know if you're doing things on a. I don't know. You wouldn't do this on a stamp position, I don't think. But I would just say try to freehand it, just in general. First to see how it goes. Okay. Freehand it in terms of just having this paper just kind of loose here. Okay, I'm going to continue this beam down here this way. I don't know if it's going to really show up down here because it's just so light, so this white against that super light area might not show up. I don't know, maybe there'll be a little hint of it down that way. Yeah, okay. So this is right here. See how I just kind of broke this up right here a little bit too? Like maybe the whale is breaking that beam a little bit. And let's just reposition here, and let's have another ray go right here. Let's do this. Doing these rays too, it's like it's almost like adding in like another image. I guess it is, but we're thinking about stamps and adding stamps and doing things like that. But I don't know, maybe the most dynamic visual in this scene might be just, oftentimes for me, I think it ends up being the light rays. Those are the things that you might, someone looking at the card would probably notice first. In many cases, I don't know. I'm not sure in this case, but because the background isn't really super dark, where the beams are really pronounced. Okay, now see that right there. Right there, I need to get a little bit more contrast into that. So I just kind of add it in a little bit at a time like that. And I take a look at it and I see how much or little these are standing out. Okay, so I'm just kind of putting in some more right here. I kind of oscillate it too. You don't have to do the same amount, the whole length of it. So see, there's a little bit more contrast between that beam and this one right here. Okay. And let's do something like this here, maybe. And let's do something kind of like a little bit of a wider one, maybe. And let's see what that looks like. It just kind of creates a little bit of a variation again. Or you can do this one lighter or something like that because it's wider and bigger. I don't know. If you have really wide light beams that are kind of lighter in value, you can put kind of a narrower one right on top of it somewhere. So, the beams themselves look like they're kind of layered. Now I have to put quite a bit down here. Like I said, there's a really light area, so it's just like putting white over it. There's not a lot of contrast at all. Okay, let's do another. This one already had that kind of beam right in there, so I don't know, it might have like overlapping beams or something like that in there. Let's do this. These are like all kind of evenly spaced right here. So let's do this. Is that too wide? Let's give it a try. Oh, see, when it's this like super wide beam like this too, what you can do is you can make it a little bit uneven. So what you do is you kind of curtain it. You put a little bit more ink on one side of the beam. So you can vary it from, you know, near to far like that too, in terms of how much ink you applied, but you can also do it from one side of the beam to the next. So you can add a little bit more on one side or a lot more. So mine's going from a little bit thicker to thinner down here, but it has a little bit more on this side. I don't know. I think when I'm usually doing it, I usually go a little bit more on the top end. But I don't know. I don't know if it really matters. Like something like that. Okay. Now what I do after that is I kind of bring in some additional tone just to kind of, I don't know, kind of strengthen the lighting from the point of emanation. The point of emanation is like way over here though, you know. It's some distance, but I'll kind of lighten it up in here a little bit more. And we'll put some, these whales are kind of being bottom lit a little bit, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of this pigment ink like that on their underside, where this is like lighter down here too, so they're, I don't know, they're being kind of lit from both sides in a way. And you can put some of this against some of these branches here to vary it a little bit more. Like this. Maybe it's kind of like a dreamier kind of water set, you know, setting where it's like the bottom of the seafloor is the illuminated portion or something like that. Let me see something here too. Let's do this. I'm gonna make these whales, I don't want them to stand out too much, but kind of in those, I don't know, what do you call those markings on those whales? I'm gonna lighten that up a little bit like that. I don't know if you can tell, but a little bit of highlighting like that, just to make them stand out from the background just a touch. They're supposed to look like, you know, far away, but I don't know how far they'd be, like 30 feet or something like that, 40 feet underwater maybe. But we have this texturing in here too, so I thought what might be good for that is some of that splatter painting too, and it might represent like little air bubbles or something like that in here, so we'll use some of the white pigment ink. Looking forward to your underwater extravaganza candy. And Linda's going to be doing some 11 by 17 Atlantis scenes too. All right. Now, this isn't going to stand out too much on here. Again, it's not a really super dark background. But see this area up in here? There's like so much variation down here, and I really love it. But I think, you know, these little specks in here could add a little bit of a... I don't know if it's like 3 dimension, you know, an extra dimension. I guess it kind of is, but it'll be subtle here, I think. Just because of that contrast, but I do want a little bit more variation on here, so let's do this. Yeah, I can barely see it. Okay, there I see it. I couldn't tell which way this, which way my brush was splattering. All right, yeah, there's like really little, there's really, really subtle textures in here with this. Let me see if I can show you right here. See those little specks right in here? Now it might be standing out a little bit more right now too. Like, see this all down here? Okay. I mean, it's too subtle right there. But it gave me a head start too, and I splattered a little bit over my whales too. Okay. So what you do is we need to take advantage of scale here when it comes to this. So what you do is you come in with your white gel pen or paint pen, whatever, and then you add in these extra forms like that. Okay. Just to take care of that top end of this texture. Okay, so there's like, I don't know, whatever, 16th of an inch little dots where everything else was like a 64th of an inch or something like that. I think I'm being chicken here. Let's go like a, let's go pretty big here with some of these. This would be a good, when I format this into a card, this would be a good spot up here for like a quote stamp. Or word, you know, word stamp of some sort. All right. So see these little dots down here. I don't know. It kind of expands on this too. Like you can almost see this in, you know, being like a sky up here as well. And this could be like this transition in here. Or if this was like, it reminded me of a nebula, but a little bit lighter or something like that. But then these could be like stars in here, so you make it a little bit more dreamy maybe. And then you can make some of these kind of more fuzzy like I do sometimes with, you know, a little bit of a Q-tip. This white here, I didn't really shake this up very much because I wanted these to be kind of a little bit more see-through and, you know, translucent for here. But let me try some more opaque ones as well. Let's see what this looks like. If anyone has Amazon Prime, that Prime Day thing is coming up, so and those prime days, like a set of the 45 Artistro pens last time. I don't know what it would. I forgot how much I bought them for. I already have a 42 set, but some of my lighter colors I've almost used up to completion. And I was looking for someone else, those pens, but I happened to look on that Prime Day last time, and I bought my set of 42, I don't know, like 2 or 3 years ago. I don't know, maybe it's been 4 years at this time, but it was $42 because I just remember it was like $1 a pen, okay? And I thought that was a pretty good deal at the time. But that Prime Day thing, and I hadn't looked for a while, but that might be a little bit too light right there. I'll color that in with a alcohol pen. But that Prime Day came around, and that same exact 42 set pack, colored pack, it comes with like 2 white and 2 black ones. They think those would be the 2 colors used most. For me, it's white. I almost never use the black, but it was like $15. It might have even been less. I thought, man, that is so insane for these paint pens. And it went back up. It's more expensive now, but it didn't go back up to like 42 though. But I don't know. It's right around the corner. I'm sure all this stuff's coming out of China too, so I'm not sure how it's going to affect the pricing of something like that. But that being said, if you're in the market for some pens, paint pens, and you have Prime, keep an eye out for that, something like that on that day or days. Okay, so adding in some highlighting on the tops of some of these branches. Does anyone here have Posca paint pens? I do not, but those ones are like the main brand of paint pens as far as I know. But I was just kind of curious as to the opacity of them, how opaque they are. I think, as far as I know, anyone that's used them, I think, has liked them. I don't see too many posts. I don't know, maybe because they're not just, maybe they don't mention it or something like that. If someone's used them in a card or not. Not just scenic stamping, but just anyway. But I don't know. I was always under the impression that they're pretty good. I think they're a lot more expensive, though. Especially, from some of these, like, discounted packs. But I was just kind of wondering about the opacity of them, if anyone knows about that. Because someone was the reason why I was thinking about these pens recently is someone had a pack of some brand, okay, and they just said, hey, what markers are you using? Paint markers. Because they were just too anemic for them. What they were doing was they were using their pens, and they were too if there's like clear, translucent, and opaque right over here, just solid, you can't see through it at all. My pens, these Artistro ones, are probably like middle of the road or something like that. You know what I mean? They're not like super opaque. But I was telling someone that I did have some really opaque ones one time that worked amazing, okay? But I didn't use them for, I don't know, like a month or something like that. And, it wasn't the small ones. I don't think it was the small ones. I think it was the 3mm, like these ones right here. Not these ones, but the other ones that I had. They were, again, they were like beautiful to work with, but they all dried on the tips. So when you started working with them again, it was like solid, dried, crusted paint on the tip of the pen, the marker. And you can kind of, if you scribbled around with them like a ton and you wore through the that crust, you can get them kind of working again a little bit. Not great though, because the whole tip, was kind of solid, and I don't know whether it works by what do they call it, like capillary action or something like that. And it was just kind of a hassle to use, so I just, I didn't really use it after that. But I don't know. I was kind of wondering about the Posca, if those ones were a little bit thicker and didn't clog. That would be a really good combination. That'd be worth it for, definitely worth it to me if they were a lot more opaque. So many Costco's, I love them, but I find the white could be more opaque. Okay, great, great. Can you use them on, have you used them on like black paper before and colored anything? Have you tried, or any kind of darker paper with the colors? And if so, I'm just kind of curious, if you were to write onto a black piece of paper or something like that with the white pen, I'm just kind of curious what would you say the value of that white is? So super white would be 100%, but if it's like kind of see-through, is it more of like a 50% or something like that? I'm thinking with my pens, if I drew on black, it would probably look like a 20%, you know, white, or, something like that in terms of translucency. That's why for me, so a lot of times I'll wait for it to dry. And I was telling someone not to go off on this well, I don't know. I guess I'm always going off track on my live streams here, but I was telling someone maybe the paint pens too, when they're not as opaque as I'd want them to be. I speculated that maybe spray sealing the pieces first and then applying the paint pen might result in a better opacity, because if I'm working in water-based media and then we go into the pens with water-based media, the markers, the paint, and the paint doesn't dry really fast, I'm wondering if it kind of wicks up some of the media that's already been applied, thus making it a little bit darker or something like that. I don't know, but I thought that might be that could be the case of what's going on. A little bit, I don't know. All right, so applying some of this white pigment ink in here. So we've varied our impressions in here of the trees. So I have them kind of drier on the base like this and darker up top. And we did that. If people didn't watch last week, when I inked up my stamp, I wiped off some of the ink off the bottom of the trees right here, of these little islands, so that when I stamped them out, it went from darker to lighter like that, because I anticipated adding a little bit of this into the base of the trees, making it look more like a foggy kind of atmospheric type of situation. So if you kind of wipe off some of the ink, just where it's inherently lighter at the base like that, it just, you don't have to apply so much white in order to get that kind of that lighter grayscale, appearance in the background like that. So anyway, and now I'm doing this too in the background. So, yeah. So you're kind of like toning some of this off and making this a little bit softer right here. I think it's kind of making these whales stand out a little bit more, because it's softening this up and lightening it up a little bit where these stand out. They're a little bit more, they're darker and crisp against, I don't know, whatever, lighter and soft maybe. The forms in the background. And see what I'm doing here is I'm kind of just adding some, I'm not adding it over the whole thing because you need a little bit of contrast between here. So I put some right in here so it's a little bit, I mean, it's not super dark, but it's darker and crisper and then lighter and softer, like that right in here. And then I put a little bit up here too. I mean, it's not, you don't have to worry. It's not like, wait a minute, do I lighten this tree or do I lighten this tree? I don't know. You know what I mean? It doesn't, it doesn't really matter. You just kind of oscillate it a little bit more. So wherever you put some, give it a little bit of space and then add, some more accordingly. So see, like right here, this is all the same right here. So I'm just kind of dabbing a little bit right in here. Like that, and maybe that pushes back those distant trees against these closer ones here too, or see that like in between these trees right here, I'm just saying because it's already a little bit lighter there, so I'm just kind of reiterating that with a little bit more tone like that, so it kind of pushes it back even more. And let's say, oh, I don't like that, this ink, especially on this glossy cardstock, you can just wipe it off. It'll, it kind of grabs it a little bit more when it's dry, but you have plenty of time to manipulate it. Like even if it dried completely, this pigment ink, I can just kind of buff it out. It's a little, it sticks a little bit, but if you really thought, oh my God, I shouldn't have put that there, and it's dry, you can just kind of buff it out, take a clean cotton ball or something like that and just remove it like that. Yeah, I see that, Linda, you're 11 by 17 Atlantis scene, underwater scene. I need pink and more paint pens. I need pink and more paint pens. I can't say that, Candy. I need more, I need pink and more paint pens. Do you need more, like the color pink, are you saying, Candy? Because if you are, I agree. I need pink. I don't have that in my 3mm ones. I have it in my smaller ones, but see this pink right here, unless you're saying something else. This pink right here, for some reason, it doesn't look like this at all. Maybe it looks like it on like a just pure white paper. But if I try this pink over the top of other things, it's like super, super watery. I don't know why. It's the chemistry of it or something. I don't know. Okay, let's see. Let me see if I can add on a little bit of this fog here. See that like that? A little bit of that fog on that whale. Like that. But see, I didn't put it in the front of it. I just kind of put it right in the middle. I mean, or I could put it in the front and back and leave the middle as is, So like I said, you just kind of tinker around and you oscillate things a little bit. See, I'm kind of putting a little bit right there. That doesn't look good, so I'm going to wipe it off a little bit, but we'll leave some of it on there. So see that? It's a little bit lighter and darker here, and it's just inherently lighter in here because it's closer to the light too. Now, if I stamped these and they were all in the darkness, I wouldn't put any on there, but see this light is right here in between these two fins. So let's see if I can make that whale fin a little bit more. See that right there? I just kind of added a little bit in there. Let me add a little bit more so you can see it maybe. I can see it here, but see that light coming through there? Like that? Isn't that fun? But see, it kind of makes this fin stand out a little bit more. So what you're doing is you're kind of changing the texture, but it kind of pushes something back a little bit more. So you can really play, control, or I don't know what, maybe not control, but manipulate distance visual distance doing things like that. So it's just a little bit. I mean, these whales are, I don't know, they're supposed to be like 10 feet from each other or something like that. But, it's just like a half an inch between these two. But that looks pretty good there. So it kind of just plays around with things a little bit like that within, this area in the same space. And that there's a little bit more light right there. Like if I put that lighting on this one, I guess you could. But it's a little bit darker there, so maybe I won't go too much right there. But what people always do, though, including myself too, is we apply more on there than probably what looks ideal. In other words, we go kind of like hog wild with this paint, and it's like the whole thing is like white. But I always say, hey, you'll hear me say this over and over. Just go beyond what you think, is kind of ideal. And then so kind of, how far you should go next time or whatever. You'll know more about it than just kind of holding back all the time. And with something like this, you can kind of manipulate it and remove some of the ink that you've already applied if you need to. Okay, now I have that little bit of texturing in here. I'm gonna just fill it in. Yeah, okay, so see this black colored pencil works pretty good on this glossy right here. Like that, I just kind of filled in a little bit of this with this black Prismacolor. Works pretty good on there. All right, so there's a couple of the pieces like that. It seems like I don't know, it seems like I can use something right in here. I always do that, in my scenes, but this is supposed to represent much deeper water, like we're not like on shoreline. I guess you could do that. I could put like a rock here or something, but I don't know, it's more like we're out on a boat or something like that, looking at these orcas and, whatever, 40 feet of water at least or something like that. Yeah. It seems strange not to have something in the foreground here for me because I like do that on everything. All right, I have these ones right here. Can you see these little specks in here? It's subtle, but I think it added, a decent little touch in here. Oh, okay, so see that monotony going on with all those stars up there? Yeah, that doesn't look good. So it's not that we shouldn't have done that, but what you do is you vary it a little bit more too. Okay, so what you do, I wasn't thinking, I did that thing that I was always mentioning when people apply those dots. And I'm a people too, so notice how they're all, I mean, there's a little bit of variation here, but they're all kind of spaced out equally. Kind of, it's like a 1/4 inch or something like that, but you do is just go in and just kind of vary something like this. So, and this is glossy cardstock too. So Candy's got those 250 sheets. She can do this too. But if you add in these paint pen marks like that, if you added in too many, and if it's the acrylic water-based one, like, okay, let's like, I don't like that star right there. You can just go like that. I think. Maybe I can't. Oh, here it comes. Okay, now see, it's gone. So you can just like buff it right out. You can't do it, after you spray seal it, but if you need to take it out, you can do that still. Or if you have like a bunch of them, and it's like, that's like too busy, you can take like a really, if they're over blue or something like, you can take a blue pen and just color it blue, so that it's not as prominent anymore. It's like a duller star. I don't know, whatever, more distant or older star. Now you don't want to do it with like a dark pen where it's going to leave a big mark, but if you're working in a lighter tone than the colors that are already applied down here, it usually won't stand out. Like a strange textural oddity or something like that, because alcohol inks can have that that texture to it. Anyway, so you go like that. So see, these are a little bit more varied. Maybe that's too consistent again. Here, let's take this and let's take that out of there a little bit like that. Okay, so see, it's a little bit more varied. So it's a little bit more pleasant to the eye, like that up in there with the stars. The stars are like tiny little dots, but they do stand out a lot up there because it's like it's a little bit of a different texture in the whole scene, but they're also something, there's the most amount of contrast up here with those little tiny little specks of light up there against that darkness. Okay, let's see. Oh, your hand, Linda, yeah. How's that hand coming along there? Maybe you can do other things too. You know, work on kind of more, whatever, more whatever gently applied types of processes when working in kind of larger scale pieces where you know you can get maybe things that would require a lot more repetition, and do it where I don't know there's just less kind of like manipulation going on with the fingers, but you can do it in one like whole thing where you're just keeping everything kind of more straightened and ergonomic where it's like a I don't know have you tried applying some tones? I've often thought like fabrics would be the best applicator of like wet media for cards. Like if we're doing something like this, like if you had something like a chamois cloth or something like that, or an old whatever t-shirt or something like that, you know, you can get a lot of those kind of areas down very quickly. Now, you don't want to waste ink or anything like that too, but I thought kind of the softer softer applicators would be really good for that. People hate when I use like paper towels. You know, it's not like I use those paper towels just whatever cheap paper towels all the time, but it's not like it's sparked like this movement of whatever found object, in terms of found in our kitchen cabinet, you know, ink blending devices. Okay, this one is going to look like a shoreline right here. This is what I intended for this. This is on the vintage paper. Okay, so maybe I should, yeah, maybe I'll use my hybrid ink for that, a little bit thicker than your dye-based ink. Okay, let's see how this one stamps out. Test prints. I'm watching this area right here. This area right here is a little bit lighter. It might have a little bit of resist on it. In fact, I can kind of see it right here. It's not, the ink isn't building up as much right there. Let's do this. Let's moisten this a little bit, and we'll see if this does the trick. Okay. It could be the pad too, so let's see. Where it was just a little bit more moist. Ink. Okay, let's see. Oops, I inked up my pad with the wrong ink. Anyone ever do that? I'm just joking, I didn't. You just don't want to use like something like a, I don't know, like a VersaFine Clair on here would be fine. There we go. but like a stays on ink or something like that, re-inking the wrong thing. Okay, let's see. Let me do one more print. Yeah. Keep that in mind. You see how many... So I did, I don't know, 4 prints, but I just needed more ink on my pad. This was the one that I was going to use here, right? Or was I going to use the... Yeah, I think that... It was either this one or the Otter and Child. Otter and Pup. All right, see, this little area right down here was stamping out really light for the first, like, several impressions, okay? I don't know, I kind of wiped it off there, but I think a little bit more ink did it too. I didn't think I would have to do that, but there was enough of that solid area right in here. With the imagery, okay, that sometimes you need to kind of get these like darker areas conditioned, like right in here probably for this one too. There's a little bit of texture in this design down here though too, so it's not just solid black, but I needed it to get a little bit darker down there like that. So I mean, once you do it, you know, you shouldn't have to do that again. And this is why, if you see me doing this, I'm just kind of tapping it out. I'm not going to stamp this image out in like red or yellow or something like that. So I just leave it on there. Unless I'm stamping it on stays on ink or something like that, then I might clean it off. Okay, but anyways, this one's just a really quick, when you work on these kind of colored papers like that, well, on this one right here, I added a lot of those green tones down here because there was a lot of lighter area on Deanna's paper. But I just go in, actually, yeah, Linda and I were just talking about this. You know, these are colored scenes right here, but you know, they're pretty monochromatic. They're almost like grayscale. They're not grayscale because it's blues here, but you know, there's not a huge change in tones right here. It was just a little bit of green and, I don't know, brownish tone colored pencil in there. I used some black. But right in here, you know, doing something like this, when you start off with that vintage paper, it already has this variation in tone. It has temperature. It's warm. I colored these. I think, did I do that last week? But you can just kind of do some things like this, like working in the shadows like this. And you can add, I don't know, just variation lighting in there. I do like coloring and watching things develop, but I'd have to say that I really like doing all my little, you know, special effecty types of things, you know, with the little stars and this pigment ink in here, because that's when I see all these types of kind of kinesthetic looking changes happening. I mean, they're all two-dimensional, but it's when like you enter in that, you know, I don't know, it's like a sense of touch into the pieces. It's like visual touch because it's like textures. So there's a lot of textural changes that happen. And when you do things like adding in shadows, it makes things look a little bit more three-dimensional now. You get this image that's anchored in there, so there's like a little bit more visual weight. And that's the things that I really like adding into pieces. That's the things I have the most fun with, probably. So we should all just switch over to like photo stamping then, right? Photo stamping, for that don't know, it's where you just, you know, it's usually for scenic stamping, it's usually sky backgrounds and things like that. It might be bodies of water, but you just kind of print them out and then you would stamp your images on here. So, I mean, this, I could have started off with like a photographs of just some water, okay? I mean, you can have it with all the tide pools, but then, what's there to stamp though? But if this is like just all water right in here, you can, and if it wasn't too textural with a lot of contrast, you could stamp your beaver on, otter on here with all these other images, just like I'm doing here. It would just have a different, look to it, of course. But that's really fun to do too. And you just, the best thing is to just take photo paper and print it out on your own home inkjet printer. All right, see that little guy sitting in there like that, and see I'm just kind of changing the. I'm varying my transitions right here, so you can see I'm going from dark to light down here, or dark to light this way with these streaks in here of like tone, okay? And that's what I'm doing right here too. I'm just going darker around my sea otter, and then as I go out here, it's less and less, I mean, you can create it where there's like hard shadows too, but for the most part, I usually try to transition it where it's darker, like that, and as it gets farther away from the object that's casting the shadow, it gets lighter, like that. In here, it's kind of, maybe my beams are stronger up here, and then it gets more see-through down here, so it's like a thicker application of that pigment ink, and then a lighter application of it down here, so it goes from strong to, or lighter to darker, but it's because it's more translucent, or transparent, I should say. All right, so anyway, I don't need to do too much on this. I'm going to add a little bit of color to this little guy. I was mentioning in the live stream when I was doing this background, or I think at sometime in the last couple weeks, we were talking about when I saw sea otters for the first time. I didn't even know they were around at this out in the wild at this state park here in California. I was coming back from the San Jose Rubberama convention, which happened, I think, twice a year in San Jose. But at one point in time, my parents, my two folks, started helping me out at that show. So I'd pick them up. I'd drive up from Los Angeles and pick them up in Central California. We'd drive to San Jose. But I'd usually just come home right after the show, but I'm with the folks, and it's kind of a little bit of extra excuse to kind of hang out. So we stayed up in San Jose overnight. So the next day we'd drive back along the coast through Carmel and Big Sur and all that, back to their place. But we stopped at this place called Point Lobos, and there were like otters in every little cove in that coastline area. It was really amazing to see. I mean, we weren't like close up to them or anything like that. You can see them from like, I don't know, like 50 yards away or something. I don't know, something like that. But anyways, this is a white pastel pen right here. I'm adding a little bit of highlighting on them. It's a little bit too thick, but when you spray this pastel with this spray sealant, it makes that white a lot more see-through. So I'm kind of adding a little bit extra. Otherwise, if you've ever spray fixed like pastels or charcoal with anything, a lot of that white detailing, the lighter over dark, it tends to disappear. So you have to kind of cake it on a little bit more like that. But see that little lighting coming from there? I'm going to put some little bit of lighting in this water too, I think. I'm not just kind of inventing. I'm kind of, see, it's a little bit lighter here on this paper. So let's say it's a little bit lighter right here, and there's a little bit of brownish right here on this vintage paper. So I'm just kind of light, making some areas that are already lighter just a little bit lighter. So I'm just kind of following that, and that just kind of makes it easier on me because it's already kind of there. I'm just kind of like enhancing it a little bit. So it looks like, some light on the water like that, maybe. So if you want to kind of bump up the light end of the value spectrum, you can do it with white just as you can kind of darken the shadow areas like that. So anyway, some initial test pieces with some of these images here. And, I don't know, it's a little bit of a different look for me. I know there's all kinds of different images out there in the stamping world, but as I was mentioning, one of the things about Stampscapes designs through the first, 20 years or something like that, or even until, I don't know, what are some of my larger animals? I don't have a lot of large animals. Not that these whales are large, it's a large design, but they still represent something that's quite a bit farther back from us. But, it was always stuff that, like silhouette styles of animal imagery that we can add in as like like an afterthought. You can stamp something, and most of my animals were dark and small, so it's like, oh, I'm gonna put that animal in right here. You know what I mean? And you can do it. So I mean, with something like this, like a fairly large otter, and it's not silhouette, you kind of have to think about putting it in there, kind of in the beginning, unless you always have a lot of open space, or if you're working, this 11 by 17s of Linda, Linda broke her hand doing, she worked on 50 11 by 17s in 1 week. Don't do that, folks. Not to joke about that, but think about your ergonomics or something like that when doing things with their hands. But yeah. These larger pieces, like large orcas, you know what I mean? We have to kind of, for me, the changes I have to kind of, compose around, my whatever visual focal points in the scenes, large animals. So yeah. Gel pens are easier to erase. Oh, are they? Are they a little bit? Yeah, I guess so, huh, Candy? Because the gel would probably be, it wouldn't be as maybe dense as the acrylic. Although, like I said, my acrylic pens are, the Artistros at least, are, they're kind of thin. That's what I was telling someone that was asking me about the pens that I use. I said, yeah, the thicker they are, the more opaque they are, and those ones look fantastic. But the thinner they are, there's just less of a chance that they're going to clog. But we don't want them so thin that, they're just completely, anemic to use too. So, I don't know. I wish mine were a little bit more opaque, like even like 5-10% or something like that. But like I said, I don't want clogging either. So I don't want clogging on pens, even if I don't use it for 3 years, So that's what the gel pens, they improved too in, I don't know, whatever, 10 years ago or something like that, before the acrylic paint pens, before I was really aware of the acrylic paint pen sets. I was using the Shuttle Art 180 color gel pen set. And the gel pens, to me, that I was using then, at that point in time, as opposed to the earlier incarnations, they were more watery. But the gel pens, to me, used to be in, years before, where they were always clogging on me, or if I didn't use them for a while, they would I couldn't use them if they'd been sitting around for a year or something like that. It was like the pen was toast. For the most part, maybe not the what was that? The Signo Uniball Signos, was that what they were? Was that the one? I think it was. I can't remember. There were some of them that were really good. I'm changing how I so things no help available. Got it. Yeah. Watch your. I guess I mean you probably thought about this all too, but the height of things too, the table and where you're doing it, maybe standing too. That's the thing that they used to tell us in school. They'd always have us mess around, like in life drawing classes, especially where they wanted you to kind of use more of the body, the shoulder and everything like that. So sometimes the teacher would have some students, you're working on this like ease, or what do I call it, a horse or something like, I forgot what it was in drawing class, but you sit on this thing like you're sitting on a bench, but you're kind of like straddling it. And then there's this little thing that you can work on. So you're working like that. But he'd have some people work like on an easel or something like that, and stand. And then some people he had, I don't know if he told people to work on, but some people were like rolling out like these big, huge pieces of like newsprint paper, and they were working on like the walls, where they were doing like really large scale things and using their whole body. Those ones, a couple people were really amazing at that, or a lot of people were. I was like mediocre in those types of classes. But that's the thing that I took from those things. It's really, using more of the body, ergonomics and things like that, and it resulted. Their big point is it got more gesture into the pieces, and it was just more of an ergonomic type of motion that you can employ. So you're not like using narrowing things down and using the fingers or the hands or something like that, or the wrist. Like a lot of people, when you're students, you're working from this part of the body and down. So they wanted more movement going into it, and maybe less dependency on the hands and fingers. So that they've changed the way that you're also holding things too. Instead of this too, okay, it was often this, okay, and you can see where it's like a lot more comfortable. You're just kind of using this like that, but it was like this. Do I do this now? No. But like I said, I wasn't good at those classes either. So, like I said, I was just like mediocre in those classes. So anyway, you like that little cute little guy there? Yeah, it's fun, huh? I like that little white on him too, Linda, especially on the vintage paper here. So this vintage paper is really fun. If you guys haven't used this type of paper before, you can print stuff out on here too, But there's all kinds of different surfaces like that. I need to do a lot more pieces here. I wanted to, if I had time on this one too, I can't wait to use these right here, these especially. I'm going to have all these little orbs and things like this in a scene, or just these floral types of things like this, in a whimsical type of scenario. I wanted, some trees in here or something like that with these little elements like this, or these little floating candles. These are supposed to be floating too on a lake, but I can't wait to use some of these. And then these lampposts again. So I'm already working on some imagery to go with these lampposts. You don't need them, but you can just stamp like something like that with, through a city park or something like that in here. But I'm also working on some other types of figures, to be utilized with all of these other types of things. I can't wait to use these tiki torches with these, I don't know. I see it with the tropical stuff. Doesn't have to be, but yeah. And these other types of lanterns like that. yeah, whatever, Japanese Chinese garden or something of that sort, or the mystic imagery. But anyway, yeah, a lot of experimentation to come. I'll be doing a lot of live streams, in the upcoming weeks. I'm sure with all of these different images, I have so many different scenarios in mind. Like all of this water stuff too. I think for me, one of the most fun ways to use them is going to be in like horizon cards, where this top portion up here is whatever the trees and stuff like this, if that was that, but the fold is right here, so you can already see it. See, even if this is like folded like this, so you stamp this on the lower portion of the inside of the card, but look how three-dimensional those look if I just do this. So I think this looks okay. But see, if I go like that, that looks like really dimensional to me. It almost looks like these fins are sticking out of the water when you go like that. So maybe what I'll do on this card right here, if it, I would go right across here. I would go right in that dorsal fin, but I can take this piece of card and just like fold it in half. So now it's a horizon card instead. Yeah, look at that. I like that better, like that. Maybe it'd be kind of interesting to do as some sort of card, like three-dimensional card or something like that, where you cut out this part and then you have it flip up or something like that, where it's a little bit like dimensional, or it's like a pop-up. I don't know. All right, but anyway, let's see here. You got the Signo white pens, Tracy. Yeah, you know your stuff. That's going back some time, huh? Those used to be the ones there. There used to be these ones too, those white Signo pens too. There was this like, I don't know if it was made in Japan or something like that, but it had this like Japanese or whatever writing on the label of it too. And they were a little bit thicker. There were some other, Uniball Signo white pens as well that I have. But I remember the ones that I used to go for were, we found them on Jet Pen. You can even find this stuff, like everywhere. But it was like you'd go on like jetpens.com, I remember. And I remember buying those pens. And I think it got to be known because they were always sold out of those. Or maybe they're just known by everyone that you liked using white gel pens or something like that. Oh, the Sakura. Yeah, the Sakura white ones. That's the one that I used to use. This is going back into the 90s. Yeah, mid 90s with those Sakuras. And then there was the Marvy one. The Marvy one I'm pretty sure was, I'm pretty sure, or Uchida, I think. I don't know. Marvy, I think, was the brand of inks within the Uchida line, right? But there were, I think that Marvy one was a oil-based white paint pen. I wonder if they're still out there, because that one was like really opaque. I should get one of those. I did get a set of some other oil-based paint pens, but they were so similar to the water-based Artistro pens that I have that I just didn't bother. I don't bother using them because I don't want to, you know what I mean? I don't want to introduce something else, into the mix that was not going to be any difference at all. But I thought the oil-based ones might be a little bit thicker, maybe denser, and like have a shinier look to it, like a little bead of paint. But the pens, the ones that I got though, actually it's these ones right here. These ones work fine, but I could not tell the difference between these and my other ones. So I don't really use them, but you can see right here where it says oil-based. I think this one right here, I think I did grab the pink out of here though. And I think the pink in this one is better than the water-based Emoki brand one. Yeah, but this one right here worked pretty good. But you can see that there's like one pink in here. I need like a pastel, a really good pastel oil bit. I'm going to leave that one out here. Sakura, I have 3 different tip ones. Huh. 10, 8, 5. What's that, Candy? That's not 10 millimeter, right? What does that mean? 10, 8, 5. There's no way that would be millimeter. I don't think. It sounds pretty cool, though. Yeah, let me know what that is, Candy. All right, folks. I'm going to get these matted up. This one right here needs a little something, though. It needs a little bit more of a, like, intensity. I would go in here with some additional... Sometimes you got to go in here if you want to kind of brighten something up sometimes. I recommend what you do is you go add another layer of ink in there. And I don't know. I think before it dries, what you do is you spray seal it. Now, spray sealing can bring out a lot of intensity that something might not appear to have when it's dry, because it dried to a kind of a chalky, duller looking surface than what it looked like when it was freshly applied and wet. But I have my suspicions. I haven't like tested everything out like completely, like a scientific test. But if you kind of go over here with some additional moist ink, and before it dries completely, at least, you don't have to run out, and get it within the next minute or something like that. But if you apply it then within like 15 minutes or so, spray seal it, I think it retains a little bit more of the intensity and the depth of the ink as it looked when that ink was freshly applied. So, yeah. Yeah, different tips. I get that, but I was wondering how. I wonder what those refer to. I guess maybe that's just the brand, and that's just referring to their general sizes. Their sizing convention, then, right? It's not referring to millimeters, because those would be huge then. But huh? Let me know. Let me know. That's not the Sakura, right, Candy? Or it is, right? I need to look that up. Or email me. Tell me what that is. I gotta look that up. Might have to dip into those Sakura pens again. Oh, cool, Candy. Thanks, Candy. All right, stay tuned for a lot more experimentation. I need to get back into the swing of stamping and like nighttime kind of illumination applications too, especially with all these new lantern lighting types of things, glow in the dark too. So glow in the dark little spheres within the landscape. A little magic to our pieces. Thanks, everyone.